Welcome to the Great Detour podcast. I'm your host, Jess. If there's one thing I've learned about life, it's that it's full of twists and turns, and oftentimes a pretty big detour, or two. Sometimes these unexpected paths lead us to a life better than we ever imagined, and other times they give us the hardest lessons we never wanted to learn. But almost always, they leave us changed. Join me and my guests as we explore life's unplanned paths and learn from stories of growth, resilience, and transformation. Hello and welcome back to the Great Detour. Today it's just you and me. You're getting a solo episode. I am currently sitting in my home office on this chilly January morning, though it's probably much later when you're listening to this. And I've got my cup of coffee with me, and I feel like we're just having a coffee chat right now. I've had a few thoughts on my mind this past week, so I wanted to hop on and share them with you. And the whole reason these thoughts have been on my mind is because this year, for the first time ever, I spent New Year's Eve alone, completely alone by myself. Historically, that would have been my biggest fear in life. Like, talk to me 2 years ago, the thought of spending New Year's Eve alone would have completely terrified me and put me into an anxiety spiral, to be honest with you. But this year, I chose to be alone. You know, there were places that I could have gone, but something inside of me just wanted a quiet New Year's Eve to reflect, to rest. And it ended up being probably one of the best New Year's I've ever had, to be honest with you. I stayed in and I ordered pasta from one of my favorite restaurants, and I put on a simmer pot. I don't know if you guys know what that is. It's when you take a pot of water and let it simmer, and you put like cinnamon sticks and cloves and oranges and all these wonderful things that make your house smell absolutely amazing. And I lit some candles and I journaled and I set my intentions for 2025. And I looked back on photos of 2024 and all the things that happened this year, all the people I've met, all the experiences I've had. And I felt a lot of gratitude and I felt a lot of peace. I was just so grateful to be sitting in my home, content, peaceful, and most of all, okay with myself. And I realize how far I've come the last few years. Because like I said earlier, man, this would have never happened a couple of years ago. And so I want to talk a little bit about that journey and the thoughts that have gone through my head throughout these years regarding solitude and sitting with myself and being with myself. I've talked about this in earlier episodes, but I'm divorced. I was in a 17-year-long partnership. So from the time I was 17, I started dating my ex-husband, got married when I was 28, and then got divorced when I was 35. So basically, for half of my life, I was in partnership. So when my divorce happened, oh my gosh, I had no friggin' idea how to be alone. I was absolutely terrified. My whole life, I had somebody by my side, the safety net, somebody to go to when I was feeling anxious or upset. And now it was just me. And to be honest, it took a minute to kind of get my footing. I absolutely, without a doubt, jumped into dating too quickly. Also, I just want to say there's no right or wrong when it comes to dating after divorce. So I think it's a really unique experience for everybody. And for me, there was certainly a curiosity of, oh my gosh, what is it like to date? I'd never really dated before. I was with one person my whole life. So there was a little bit of an excitement and a curiosity to get back out there for sure. But at the same time, looking back, if I'm completely honest with myself, I just didn't know how and didn't want to be alone. So I quickly signed up for the apps and dove headfirst into that. And oh man, I feel like that's going to be a whole other episode in itself of the adventure that is dating in your 30s and essentially dating for the first time in your 30s. But I jumped into it and, was busy going on dates and also just going out and hanging out with friends. I expanded my friend network really quickly. I joined a kickball team, met a lot of great new people, and I was just out and about. So for the first few years after my marriage, I was really living life, always out, always with people, always dating. And it was a lot of fun, don't get me wrong. I had a great time. I really needed the joy and the levity after going through a divorce. For anybody who's gone through a divorce or even just a breakup, you'll know that the dissolution of a relationship is not something you take lightly. And there's usually a long, drawn out period. At least for me, there was. You invest so much time and energy into this relationship, it's hard just to walk away from it. You really want it to work. So you try everything. And divorce is very often a last resort. So by the time I got out of my situation, I was just ready to breathe again. I was ready to experience joy, experience life. And that's what I did. But along with that, I just was never alone. I was, like I said, dating and out and busy with friends. And then there came a period, probably, I want to say maybe 2 years later. I had been dating somebody, I was in a relationship, and we broke up. And after that breakup, there was just a shift in my life where, I don't know, I just wasn't around people as much for a variety of different reasons. A lot of my close friends started having children and their families were expanding and they were busy and just not as available anymore. And all of a sudden, I was forced to sit with myself in a way that I had never had to before. And let me tell you, I did not like it. There was a ton of resistance to it. And there was a winter there a few years back where, I won't lie, it wasn't a good winter for me. I felt very, very lonely. And it was this weird liminal period. And I think it was a huge growth period for me. And I just wasn't recognizing it at the time, where I wasn't who I used to be. And I was starting to become this new version of myself, but I wasn't quite her yet either. And I was stuck in this weird middle, and it just felt pretty awful, to be honest with you. And I remember that winter I spent a lot of time alone, more than I care to admit. And it was really hard. I certainly felt the loneliness on a soul level. It was palpable in so many ways. But there was also this deep desire in me to be alone, I think, and to get closer to myself. And it was odd. Like people would ask me to hang out and I would choose to be alone. And at first I was like, am I depressed? What's going on here? But I think there was a deep desire in my soul to get closer to me. And I didn't know this at the time, but I believe this period is called the cocoon stage or the cocoon chapter. And it's a very insular period where you spend a lot of time alone and you go inward. And I think I did not know it, but I had initiated my cocoon chapter, but a tremendous amount of growth came from that chapter. Though I will not lie, it was incredibly uncomfortable and not my favorite. Not my favorite. But in addition to craving more alone time, not only was I craving it, I mean, I was forced into it at first, and then I started craving it. And then I realized I started to be more choosy about the people I surrounded myself with. Prior to that, it was the widest network possible, 100% quantity over quality. And I just want to say, when I say quality, I don't mean to say that these were bad people, not by any means, but you can't be friends with everyone. I mean, what's the expression? A friend to everyone is an enemy to oneself. I could not give my love and my friendship as widely as I was without betraying myself on some level. So during this period, I really started to reevaluate the friendships in my life. and ask myself, are these people in alignment with me? And are these the type of people I want to be investing energy into? And friends serve different functions, and not every friend is going to be your soul level friend, your soul family or your ride or die. You're going to have those friends. You're going to have your hangout friends. You're going to have your travel friends. So I kind of looked at them in those different categories and also really thought about the way that the people I was choosing to hang out with made me feel. Do I feel energized after I spend time with these people? Or do I feel completely depleted and drained? Do I feel supported? Do I feel like they only call me when they have nothing else to do and they just want to hang out? So I took a pretty solid inventory of my friendships, and it was hard. It was a lot of hard realities I think I had to face that, yeah, some of them were just hanging out with me for convenience or because I was, newly single and had all the time in the world to hang out and do fun things. Would they be there for me if something big came up? I'm not sure, but these were important questions to ask. I really wanted to step into a life where not only was I good with myself, but I was good with the circle that I chose to surround myself with. And that was that journey. It was so uncomfortable, so lonely, but I came out of it. It was probably like a full winter, and I came out of it feeling so much stronger. And it's so cliche to say it, but I feel like I really learned to love myself. And I found out who I was. Before that, I really didn't. I really didn't. I would just hang out with anybody or go out or do anything to avoid being with myself. That's a really sad thought when I think about it. And I look back on that version of myself and I have so much compassion for her and so much grace for her because I was doing the best that I could with what I knew at that time. But now I'm at a place where I feel like because of that uncomfortable period, because of that solitude, I know who I am. And that's going to continue to grow and evolve and change. I'm always trying to improve myself. And I feel like there are just many iterations and versions of ourselves that we go through in life. But I'm closer to myself than I've ever been before. And I feel like I know how to talk to myself and check in with myself, which is something I never did historically. Now I'll check in. So, for example, if I'm not sure what I want to do I want to go out tonight and hang out with these people? Or do I want to stay in? Or do I want to call somebody else? I stop and I ask myself, what do you want, Jess? And I wait to see what comes up. And something always does. Always does. You just have to give yourself the time and the space and the quiet to hear it. That was something I learned, really, really learned, is there is power in the quiet. There is power in solitude. I was so busy and distracted and go, go, go before that I didn't have an opportunity to hear myself. I didn't have an opportunity to hear my own intuition come up and what it was telling me. Sometimes I feel like it was almost screaming at me, but I was too distracted to hear it. And I think almost like the universe forced that cocoon chapter on me because it was whispering it to me, and I wasn't listening. And then boom, it was like, all right, well, your friends are busy now. And so you're going to have to sit by yourself and suck it up and get closer to your true self and your soul and who you are. And it's a beautiful place to be once you get there. I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, but by no means. It's always a work in progress. But I feel so much more grounded than I ever have in my entire life. And I feel like all the decisions I make, all the choices, big or small, come from a really empowered and stable place because I do check in and I listen to my gut and I listen to my body. And that's another big one that's come up for me recently is listening to my body. Oftentimes, actually not most of the time, I am in my head. I am just a person who has an unfortunate tendency to overthink and to ruminate on a lot of things. It's just the way I've been since I've been a kid. I have a tendency to try to anticipate problems and get ahead of them. So as a result, I'm always in my head. But when you're in your head a lot, I've learned you miss the signals from your body, and your body is always giving you data. It's always giving you information. I really feel like that's where your intuition lives, is in your body. And it gives you pings all the time. Does this feel good for me? Does it not feel good for me? That's why they say your gut, listen to your gut. It's true for a reason. Your body will give you signs. And now sometimes, like for example, I'll be out with somebody and for some reason, I just feel off. Or maybe like my stomach hurts, or I have just like a knot in my stomach, or something doesn't feel right. I'm not saying I cut that person out of my life, but I will listen to that and I'll say, okay, all right, I think my body's trying to tell me something. Is maybe there's something going on with this person where maybe they're not the best to be around, or maybe they drain my energy, or maybe I need to limit my time with them. But I pay attention to those signals and I get curious about them versus just completely writing them off, which is what I used to do in the past because I just wasn't listening to myself. I wasn't connected to myself. And I think once you're connected to yourself, it can only lead you in the right direction in all aspects of your life. When it comes to the friendships you surround yourself with, when it comes to your partnership or your romantic relationship, when it comes to your career, being connected to yourself will only guide you to situations, places, people, opportunities that are in alignment for you and that are right for you. And that's going to look different for everybody. So what it looks like for me might be completely different for you. And that's okay. I feel like we need to have open minds and not be so judgmental that there's a right or wrong way to go about life or do the things that we do. There's not. But for me, this period of solitude was probably one of the most transformative periods of my entire life. And I'm so grateful for it. Would I want to do it again? Probably not. But oh my gosh, it leveled me up in a way I really can't describe. And now I feel like I'm in a period of balance where, say I have plans on a Friday night and they cancel, like my friends cancel on me. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just stay in. I'll be okay. Or I'll make other plans. But the idea of staying in doesn't completely terrify me like it would have in the past. I'm okay with being on my own sometimes. I enjoy being on my own sometimes, as was the case with this New Year's. It was a really beautiful experience. And then the next day I got up and I went for a run with my run club. And it just felt so perfect that this was exactly what I wanted to do. Spend some time reflecting and relaxing and then go be with a really wonderful group of people and move my body. And that was exactly what my New Year's needed to be this year. Next year, it might be completely different. Who knows? So those are the thoughts I wanted to leave you with today. I think that solitude oftentimes gets a bad rap, but it's not a bad thing. If you're in a period of solitude right now, I encourage you to lean into it, get curious about it, and make the most of it. Because I truly believe that when you get closer to yourself, that when you tap into your own intuition and your own inner knowing, it can only lead you in the right direction and into places and opportunities and bring you to people that are in alignment with you. And if you are feeling sad and lonely, I get it, man. I've been there. It is not an easy feeling. I just want to say that you're not alone. I believe that we are all connected energetically. And so I am right here with you. I am on this journey with you. And like with anything in life, good or bad, no chapter lasts forever. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Great Detour. If you like what you're hearing, I'd love if you could leave a rating or review wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you have a detour story of your own, you can send it to mystory@thegreatdetour.com or shoot me a message at The Great Detour on Instagram. Thanks for taking this journey with me.